Hi, my name is Zach DeLeurere, and I'm the Associate Pastor at the Bridgeport Free Methodist Church in Bridgeport, West Virginia. I grew up attending the Hendricks Free Methodist Church as a child where my father was pastor. At the age of 4 years old, I remember being in a revival service and coming forward to the altar and giving my life to Christ. I remember being at that altar and praying with my dad, and my dad, one of the things he said to me is, "You're going to be starting school here soon. Are you going to be a witness to Jesus to all of your friends?" I remember saying, "Yes, I will." So as I grew, I wasn't always a perfect Christian. There were times where I felt like I was on fire for Christ, and then there were other times where maybe my walk with Christ wasn't the way that it should be. And I kind of almost wore two faces when I was a teenager. I had this face that I put on around my family and around my church, where I was a good kid and they saw me in that way. But then when I would get with my friends, I kind of had that different face. And that was kind of my truer self, maybe. And so when I was a senior in high school, I remember my parents bought me a book for graduation that talked about your journey in life and who you would become. And it was I remember thinking to myself, this book's going to be so cheesy. And as I picked it up and I started to read it, I was proven right. It was cheesy. But I remember thinking to myself, my parents are concerned about who I am, what kind of man I would become. And yet here I was not as concerned myself. And so as I was going off to college, I was getting away from some of the friends that I had in high school. And I kind of made this, pledge to myself to, follow Christ fully, to not be swayed by those outside influences like I had done so easily. And so I started walking closer with Christ. In 2017, I was at our teen camp as a leader at Black Hills Church Camp. And the speaker that we had gave a message on our story. And it was, "What's our story?" And as he spoke and they had an altar call, I went forward, and talked to Christ about what's my story, what's it going to be. And I felt a calling on my life in that moment there at that altar. And, I felt his spirit speak to me saying, "Be prepared." And so I talked to my pastor, Jeff Stoniker, and we talked about, this calling and what it would mean. And I started down the LMC, CMC path and started taking classes and started doing these things to be prepared. And so as I've gotten in that journey and exploring my calling, I'd like to think it's kind of been easy where, a lot of times you think of a calling as, hey, here's a position to go to, or here's this thing to do. And I've struggled deeply with what that calling is in my life. Just knowing that calling, though, for me is to preach the good news of who Jesus Christ is to a dying and a hurting world, and to win souls for Christ. And I don't know how that will manifest in my life, and I don't know if that means becoming the pastor of a local church, becoming a supply pastor, as I've done a lot of that, working in youth ministry. I've done things of that nature, or even, planting a church. I don't know what that looks like, but I know that there's a calling for me to preach the good news, to reach those who need Christ. And so there are a few things in my life that I think will help me in this pursuit, will help me in this calling. And the first thing is I have the ability to reach people where they're at. No matter what age group, or no matter what people are in their walk in life, I'm very good at relating to them and speaking in a way that meets them where they are. I don't try to speak above people. I don't try to, impress, but just try to speak a message that people can relate to and people can understand. I think I do a good job with that. The second thing that I think helps me in this calling is organization. So I'm an organized person. I can kind of see little bits and pieces and put them together in a way that flows in a way that makes sense. So that organization mindset helps me greatly. And then the final thing is passion. So when I have a passion for something, a passion for preaching to a group, a passion for messages that I'm bringing, I do a good job preparing and then delivering that. And so I pray that in this calling that I'm going through, and as I become an elder, that my passion would not die. That I can see things that I would like to do, but I want God to have control in my life, and for God to do great things that I couldn't even imagine.